After largely working in the producer's chair for a little over a decade, Alex Schaffman has made his feature directorial debut in the form of A24's wild horror comedy Death of a Unicorn. The filmmaker originally got his start in the field as a writer on a handful of short films, including his own directed Passing Through, before going on to work on the producing side with everything from the Christian Slater starring horror movie Playback to the Ariana DeBose-led House of Spoils. For his feature directorial debut, Schaffman has assembled a star-studded roster of talent to make up Death of a Unicorn's cast, namely Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as a strained father and daughter who, while venturing to the latter's boss family home, run over the titular mythological creature and inadvertently unleash murderous chaos upon them and everyone else. As it explores a dysfunctional family and satirizes the rich, the movie delivers plenty of what its title promises, with Schaffman pulling from a range of mythology and lore to depict them. Ahead of the movie's release, Screen Rant interviewed Alex Schaffman to discuss Death of a Unicorn. The writer-director reflected on the creative journey of putting together the A24 horror movie, particularly the rabbit hole of research he went down to depicting the titular character and the challenge of balancing it with the character development and humor at the heart of it. Schaffman also talks building the movie's ensemble cast, and why Rudd and Ortega were key in helping audiences ground themselves in the story. Schaffman wanted to weaponize Rudd's likability to keep audiences guessing. Ortega agreeing to join the film also felt like getting struck by lightning twice for him. Where some debuting feature filmmakers find themselves working with similarly new or rising actors, Schaffman has put together an A-list cast for Death of a Unicorn, some who include Téa Leoni, Will Poulter, Richard E. Grant and Anthony Carrigan. With Rudd and Ortega serving as the audience's grounding point for the film, Schaffman acknowledged he felt like I got struck by lightning twice in a row for the two to have agreed to star in the film, though revealed he and Rudd were previously set to work on another film, with a question posed by the star leading to a point of inspiration for the director. When it came to Ortega, Schaffman admitted to being in something of a blind spot regarding her when he was first putting the film together, though had just caught her in T. West's X and sent her the script the weekend before Wednesday came out. In reflecting on the casting search, the writer-director acknowledged that it was going to be a tough role to fill out, given it required delivering exposition, holding the emotional center of the movie, and, while not technically being the straight man in the ensemble, still had to be the character reminding us of the stakes. Honestly, when I finished writing it, and I got to a place where we started casting the movie, I was like, holy ST, who can do this? This is a really hard role, there's a lot that the role needs to do, Schaffman recalled. I started watching all of her other movies from before that. After I saw X, I was like, wait, let me go back and study what she's been up to. She's just such an incredible performer, she's awesome. I was so lucky that she wanted to do this, found the time to do it, Paul, as well. In terms of casting it, I feel very fortunate they both wanted to do it. After praising Rudd and Ortega for bringing so much pathos and comedy and natural warmth to their roles, Schaffman revealed Rudd's casting had a secret ulterior motive to work in the movie's favor, with the writer-director wanting to weaponize his likability in order to make it a much harder road to hoe for the audience, as he does unlikable things over and over. Rudd and Schaffman also found a shared love of force majeure, which they used as inspiration for someone who just keeps making bad decisions until, hopefully, they make one right decision by the end of the movie. Schaffman wanted to use classic unicorn lore to subvert audience expectations. The whole movie started as a rabbit hole exploration. A unicorn with a glowing horn standing in the fog in Death of a Unicorn. While premiering the movie at 2025's SXSW, Schaffman participated in the after-screening Q&A with his cast, in which he explained that part of Death of a Unicorn's inspiration came from ideating the film's opening scene, in which Rudd's Elliot and Ortega's Ridley are having a banal conversation before hitting the unicorn. He also made note of his general lack of familiarity with the titular creatures, further expounding on that with us by admitting when he grew up he was never really interested in unicorns, only to find he couldn't stop running my brain over the movie's initial concept. This, in turn, led to Schaffman embarking on a rabbit hole exploration of unicorn mythology and lore, in which the biggest questions he posed to himself were, what are your associations with them, and what's the mythology actually based on? The writer-director immediately took notice that society has a very intuitive understanding of unicorns just from passive consumption, noting that the mythology hasn't really changed in 2400 years since the first written account in 398 BC. Schaffman also found himself drawn to the works of Jorge Luis Borges, taking particular interest in a quote from Book of Imaginary Beings that translates to, "The first unicorn story is almost identical to the last." Going from there, Schaffman became further entranced by how unicorns were previously seen as a panacea and sought after to cure things, before the past 50 to 75 years saw people turn them into these rainbow, Lisa Frank creatures rather than believing they were real. One of the key eras he found himself looking to was that of the Middle Ages, which he described as being a major touchstone point to the movie's story, particularly the tapestries Ortega's Ridley finds that she uses to try and warn everyone of the dangers to come from experimenting on the unicorns. Death of a Unicorn intentionally avoids one monster movie genre trope. It ran counter to the very fundamental nature of the movie. Will Poulter's Shep looking sad while aiming a fiery bow and arrow in Death of a Unicorn. Having fallen down such a rabbit hole of research, some could have easily leaned fully into the world of unicorns and exposition with their storytelling. For Schaffman, he acknowledged, it was a tricky balance to find, explaining the lore of his world with the dysfunctional family story and rich society satire, though also says, that's just the challenge of every script. Every story has its own challenges, and that was just one of them, Schaffman explained, of making sure that that's there, and it feels like we're giving unicorns a real sense of specificity and mythology, but at the same time, you don't want to look at a character who's buried in a book or representing research over and over again. Heart of the story.